Welcome, everyone. This is Deemer Class of First Class Lacrosse, and I have my guy Matt Dunn with me. We're excited to present to you 5 and 5, a segment that we're going to try and do weekly where we just break down a couple clips from the past weekend of NCAA lacrosse action. We're excited about the 2021 season. There was some great lacrosse this past weekend, and Matt, excited to have you on and excited to break down a couple clips.
No, yeah, excited. Like you said, it's great to see some lacrosse on this weekend. Really like going back and forth with this offense defensive format. So let's get into it.
Yeah, sounds great. So we got, Duke, Denver, and Matt, why don't you start us off here on this, Denver Dodge down the alley?
Yeah. So let it play through real quick. And then what I really just want to look at here is kind of Duke's sliding position. And then let's roll back from the start. And then just look at how Duke kind of forces the ball down the side, where they help from hedge and show, and how they play the ball at X here. So if we just pause right here. So a little more context on this clip right now. In the second half, Duke actually switched strategy here and ends up putting their X defender a little more behind with the X attackman, because Denver is doing a great job earlier in the game getting free looks through X and transferring to the backside, which is something they do very well. And so, when you get a dodge down the alley like this, teams tend to fold over from the backside. So easy transfers through X to the backside can put a lot of pressure on the defense. So you can start to see Duke's defenders starting to work out at X a little more, meaning that number 2, JT on the crease there, has to be more ready to help because there's no show presence adjacent. So JT does a really nice job here. Is even as his man leaves the crease, he knows that he has to maintain a hot presence, because if he abandons, it's a free path to the goal. So as you play the clip here, you can see how he just holds that hot position there and slides. Duke did a great job turning to the inside, recovering. They bump back, throw on the side, and they get back out and re-extend. As you watch the play continue here, back down the side, same type of deal. Now the catch here is, if you're going to press out at X, you have to make sure you see your guy, because when you start to extend a little more at X, you're at the risk of back cutting if you get too caught up in the ball here. So the Denver X attackman actually does a nice job back cutting here. I like Duke's strategy to be back there, but just having that awareness to see both and be ready for the back cut's important. So you don't have to overplay it and be in the passing lane. You kind of want to be a little underneath it there to make the transfer difficult, but not the guy behind you.
Yeah, I think Jackson Morrill had a nice backdoor cut early in the game. Similar setup, guy, pressing at X. And then here they're able to recover and bounce back up.
Yeah, and they do a nice job recovering there. So you got to give them kudos for making that play and kind of bumping through the backside. 44 does a great job of recognizing it and, recognizing the threat and bumping out. And they kind of just make a quick little switch there. But overall, I liked what Duke was doing, just kind of a simple fall asleep on the back cut there. But with that strategy, force them down the side, get a nice hot presence there, and put a little pressure at X to leave it to a more difficult transfer through X.
Yeah, it makes sense. It's always a great discussion. I know we talked about that a lot, last year, with that press out at X. Denver's one of the best teams, I think, at transferring it through X and attacking the backside. So it's definitely, important to be buttoned up on how we play that. So kind of switching gears, we're going to see a similar look down the alley. I think one thing that impressed me about UVA this weekend, was some of their early offense, or, quickly attacking in their sets, right as they're getting a sub on here. Peyton Cormier attacks down the alley, little underhand, backhand pump. Same idea, getting the mirror look. Dixon sprinting in here. And then no slide comes, because he's doing a good job of, freezing that slide. He doesn't look beat.
Yeah, and this is an interesting one, right? Because it's a pretty similar setup to the last play, actually. I think there's a couple things that frees up the Towson defense here. And like you mentioned, kind of the speed at which number 10 goes flying onto the field here for Virginia. Things happen fast. So, right, like he's cutting through hard. If that guy was sitting on the crease set, that Towson defender on the crease might have, 5 seconds to get position and think about what to do. But because that number 10 right there cuts through so hard, it's a flash decision for Towson's defense to make here. Now, the interesting thing, I think, for the crease guy to make is even though the ball carrier does a great job freezing him, sometimes it's thinking about where he is on the field and what happens if you don't slide, right? So even though he might not look like he's a threat right away and he might freeze him up a little, there's so much space right there, as you can see, between his path to the goal, where if that guy doesn't go, and he doesn't go early, and quite frankly, with the stick in his inside hand there, it's difficult to get that backhand feed, and his teammates can probably crash down in time. In tight areas like this, where you see the on-ball defender so far on the guy's back, he's under 15 yards, kind of crashing on that pipe. There's no heavy adjacent presence because the X guy's sitting on top of the crease. It's almost one of those you might as well just pick up the tempo and get a quick go, put some pressure on him and turn him back. Because with a stick in the inside hand there, it's going to take him a little while for him to transfer it anywhere.
Yeah, I would say the easiest passes, for Cormier to make here would be forward, or, just given, his background, backhand passing that to, the mirror. I remember when I played with Mark Matthews in Atlanta, we were playing in, kind of like a pairs up pick type look. And he was like, yeah, when you get underneath, just flip it over your shoulder. And I was like, Mark, I probably, I'm not ready to make that pass yet. My first year out of college, and probably still not. But I would say, like, yeah, like to your point, lefty trying to feed 10, C cutting back to the ball is probably not going to happen. So we probably can release earlier there.
Yeah, you see the Towson guy. I think he knows that. Honestly, I do think that full speed cut in the middle just got him frozen up for a second. So by the time he decides to go, he's not even in a position to make the play. And yeah, and that, to your point, that's like a KYP thing where like a Canadian kind of lefty coming under like that. You kind of know he's going to freeze you up. You kind of want him to throw that backhand pass, because those backhands, like very few guys can throw them well. Even if they can, it takes a little while for the backhand to actually get there. So usually the defense can rotate around the ball quickly on the backhand. So easier said than done, but in those scenarios, inside hand crashing on the pipe like that, it's almost good to slide, squeeze it, have the on ball carrier, the original on ball defender, stay on for a second, slide to that, and see if you can put a little pressure and clamp it there.
Yeah, I like that. And really also too, offensively for us, it just comes down to, like, with that full speed cut, and we'll see it in this next clip, just being ready to attack and probe the defense early on in the possession, and, make smart decisions, but test the waters, and we'll see the same thing here. Getting a 6-on-5 look out of a substitution. Schellenberger gets top side, turns the corner. That defender, I think, drops a little bit too much on ball, and he's able to get downhill for that nice on the run shot.
Yeah, and this one was interesting too, because if you freeze it here, you can kind of just count it up. You got 6-on-5, like you talked about. Virginia kept the pole, and I'm pretty sure Towson subbed off. What you kind of just want to understand is there's no perfect way, really game plan wise to play these scramble situations, because they're all unique in their own way. But a couple principles is that, in scenarios like this, matchups are more of a luxury. So you can kind of see that in that kind of bottom right corner of the screen, there's 4 Towson guys to 3 Virginia guys. But on the backside, there's basically 3 Virginia guys to 1 Towson guy. I think it's a Towson trying to get matchups in a scramble scenario. In these scramble scenarios, matchups, they're not as important as actually getting guys a spot. So if I'm 35 there, rather than crash onto that back pipe where my teammate is, even if that's the guy I'm covering, I'm kind of sticking up top and clogging that middle space there. And a lot of times you can think about playing man down in these scramble scenarios, almost like a man down defense. So getting into a shape a little bit of like a house, or if it's a 5-on-4, you get into a diamond or square, because guys are going to cut through and pass them through, and you more have to take up space than match up with a guy. Otherwise, you're going to be helping adjacent in these scenarios. Probably not going to be a good crease presence. So if you can force the guy down the side, you have a lot more help down there. A clean sweep to the middle is just tough to defend in transition.
Yeah, I think that's one thing that's just going to be exciting in general about the ACC, and, a lot of, different conferences, but, especially UNC and UVA this weekend, I think we're really dynamic in early offense and unsettled. So, just those guys, high profile attackmen making decisions and ready to attack. And here, kind of same thing, Denver, even though it was a big game for UNC, just on the same theme of that early offense, getting a little pass down, pick down scenario, but he actually comes underneath. That thought of the pick helps him get top side, finds the skip lane. nice move at goal line to get the finish. 70 seconds still on the shot clock. Playing fast here.
Yeah, and like you mentioned, just kind of a nice overall play as the defense gets moving so much, the more a defense has to move. So the more an offense can kind of take middle and skip the ball through and start attacking guys in lots of space where defense has to fly over and help last second, the more vulnerable they are in gaps and the harder it is to help to them. The more they have to approach the ball with speed, as you'll kind of see here, the more vulnerable they are. So off the start, it's kind of just a nice way to get middle, because if he gets middle here, that skip lane is wide open across the defense. If you force him under, he kind of gets squeezed between the low guy there, the short stick dropping off, and the low guy adjacent defender. If you force him under, by getting middle to his strong hand, that field kind of opens up because nobody really knows who's sliding, because there's not a free and easy slide there. But if he takes middle, he kind of gets the opportunity to get a shot. People are hedging over, and once he skips it through, now the approach happens quickly. So if you play it through here, right here, you can see the guy in the middle, so freeze there. The UNC defender starts folding over, so that guy on the backside is now helping to the middle because he's not sure if the ball is going underneath or over top. Now, as this ball splits over top real quickly, there's a clear pass lane to his man, and he's about 7 yards away from him. So as that ball fires through, he's got to fly out to approach. By him flying out to approach, he's vulnerable to get his approach attacked, which he does. Now this is all happening fast, so that defender on the low pipe right there has to make a read if he's got to fly over and help adjacent. He thinks he does. Now that might be a little bit of an aggressive read of thinking about where the guy is. He's going below GLE at the hash, but things happen fast. You don't realize it. So as he commits over, now you have a defense in a scramble scenario in early offense, fully rotating adjacently. And this is very tough for defenders, right? Because he's flying out. Now the ball's attacking next. You have a short stick running full speed to break down at GLE. You never really want to be breaking down on an attackman at GLE because it's one move away from a goal. So we talk a lot about, flowing with the ball and timing of approaches. And this is kind of why it matters, right? So if you can get there a little earlier, not meet this guy at GLE, maybe get out him a little more. That move isn't happening at GLE. And also, if the adjacent guy that ends up sliding across the crease here can more show and get back to his man, or even get hung and stay above the cage rather than going flying at this adjacent guy right here, rather than flying out to a guy who's kind of below GLE. If he can just jab, take it that interior space and get back. Maybe UNC gets hung here, which slows everything down a little bit rather than full fly out at a guy who doesn't have a great shot and forcing their defense to rotate off the backside.
Yeah, I would say, even as an offensive player, thinking about it from a defensive perspective, assessing the threat level as we get underneath, that angle there, and immediately changing posture to the right hand. I think trying to, like, to your point, like hedge or show and then get back. I think what's interesting here, and this is where just your responsibility off ball really matters, by one cutting and flashing into the crease on this pass, he occupies 88 for just enough to delay that rotation, to make him late medium line. So I just think, like, again, it's, getting the younger players that are watching this to see like how much just the little details and the little spacing matters, and can, change approach angles, make defenses late, and constantly make those decisions.
Yeah, another interesting quick point here that our coaches always kind of call out on film afterwards. If you watch right here, you can go forward a little bit. There's essentially, what do you got? 6 UNC defenders on the screen, and really 3 Denver guys. You got a fourth, but he's on his knees crawling off the field pretty much. And now you have you basically have like a 2-on-1 kind of happening here. 2 guys to the ball here and 1 guy open. So just having awareness in early offense, if you're not covering somebody or the team's subbing and you're a free guy, putting yourself into kind of a free safety role in the play until you have to get back out to your guy is really valuable, because one of these guys might be able to, fly down earlier right now and help out the play, because these guys don't really seem to have a responsibility here. So just being an active player, even when your guy's not on the field, and starting to be a communicator, a free safety early, being like, hey, go fly down right now. You're open. Like, go help out the play. And then when your guy comes on, we'll bring you back up to him.
Yeah, it makes great points.
So here we got that Duke kind of pairs look, similar look of them, of the middle being taken here. I'm sure you got more to add here, Deemer, than I do. But I mean, my initial thought is just in these scenarios, letting guys turn the corner to their strong hand and get downhill there. It's very difficult to help too, because if you start hedging too early, they're dodging to their strong hand. They can start to see the field. And it's just a difficult slide. So in these scenarios, the more I think you can kind of work to keep guys down the side a little bit, because you can't come off the far adjacent guy because it's an easy skip through. So kind of just getting that initial approach and thinking about what the offense wants to get in these scenarios and how you can take that away and make it a little less comfortable for them.
Yeah, and I think Owen Caputo does a nice job here too of being patient on the dodge, giving Sean Lowry the opportunity to work out to set the pick, even though he doesn't really set a hard pick and make a lot of contact and actually slips it. That's again, I think important to making sure that you're actually working and operating in the pairs look versus just running things through too quickly. And then the 3-man rotation on the backside, you get this cut down from the top, Camador on the backside, O'Neal on the far wing. That occupies slides as well. And like that's where, again, like you could see how this cut down, this Denver defenseman is probably the hot defender right now, but the cut down does a great job of occupying him. And now, hey,
Right.
who's hot? Now it changes. Are we just going to slide off of O'Neal on the backside wing? Now that slide becomes a lot longer. And again, just showing offensive players how much, your job without the ball matters in terms of occupying and changing slide responsibilities.
Yeah, Deemer, if you even like rewind here for a second, kind of going back to the first clip of how we looked at how JT was able to fill up as the ball went middle, right? So in this scenario, right, ball goes down the side, or was that the last one? Have we not done that one yet?
It'll be the last one.
All right, sorry, I can go back and I'll relate to it. So as Caputo goes down the middle there, right? So if we rewind quickly, the important thing is thinking about how the Denver defenseman at X here is he's pretty occupied. And I think it's because Michael Stowers is back there, and probably their game plan is like, hey, let's put a little focus. And honestly, that's what happens when you have a good presence at X, is guys have to be a little more occupied there. But as a ball goes up in middle, you ideally want to get that guy up involved in that kind of glob of guys right there, freeing one of those guys to go. Now the problem is, as Owen's able to get downhill here, he's not just going east-west anymore across the middle. Sometimes defensive strategy is, we can let guys go middle in the pairs and make them go east-west at, 13, 14, 15 yards, because it's not a great shot. And it's a tough feed. But when he gets downhill, now Sowers can push the back pipe and he can basically shoot or skip it or kind of hit that area there. So that's the danger of, if a guy goes middle to their strong hand, letting them get downhill is very different than sending a guy east-west across the middle.
Yeah, it makes a lot of sense. And this is where, too, the 3 players on the backside starts to change up the look for the offense. So by having 3 up here, there's only one, player at X, responsible to fill one of those pipes. Sometimes, like when we ran it back when I was there and we had 2 players on the pipes, now that player who's on the one pipe has to, kind of choose defensively to bump up into that rotation like you're talking about. So I think the 3 look, makes it even more interesting on the backside as we get the pairs look on the ball side.
Yeah. And you kind of think of what happens, how that play looks if it goes down the side and it's, Owen and his backhand there potentially squeezed into a tight spot with a guy pressing out X with a tough look through the defense. It just seems like a better option at that point.
Yeah, totally. So I think this clip is cool, Matt. I know you're going to talk about, some of the approaches in the through X, but, I think this one is helpful again, even for, offensive players. Like as we compare this one to that UNC early offense clip, as this dodge goes down the alley right here, and JT's starting to press out at X right here. He actually does a nice job of trying to turn that corner and get underneath. And that makes that defender commit before he transfers it.
Yeah.
So it's like the difference in posture is really important in terms of actually getting that guy to step to you versus like if it's a guy who's stepping away with his outside hand, not a threat, and just going to throw it forward, he can get back to play at X faster.
Yeah. And yeah, the points I was going to make there, essentially, and this is tough, and the reason being is kind of because where the rest of how Denver's kind of isolated that side, JT seems to have designated himself as the help there, but he's also covering the ball adjacently. So kind of two thoughts there. Going to help adjacently. You don't need to fold over as much from the back pipe. You can see how Duke's kind of walling it off there on the backside. So they're basically folding down like they're going to help from the crease, even though they're helping adjacently. Now, what happens is JT tries to show and get back to his man. And like you said, the Denver Dodger does a good job changing his body language. Is you kind of roll forward there. And JT makes the right read here because there's no other help there. Nobody else is getting there. So he has to acknowledge that. One thing he could do, and Duke could consider, and it's kind of hard to, is slow playing the ball behind a little bit more is one option where JT maybe he jabs up, but then gets hung and comes front side because he's kind of already given up there. So he doesn't necessarily need to jab at the Denver guy here. One interesting thought is for that Denver guy to get a good shot, he has to kind of come back up and through. If JT steps up rather than at him, he kind of goes to that lane where that guy has to get a shot back up, and then he's still able to get hung and get back. Now, when he gets caught low here, and if you keep playing it through, he gets caught low. Now, you can kind of slow play that a little more. The guy's catching it in his left-handed X there, right? Not really pushing, more clearly catch and transfer. It's a nice play. The big thing I think you were going to point out, Deemer, right here is that seal right there. So as the ball can transfer easily through X and you're getting that help adjacently, you have to understand that right now at this point, number 12 on the backside here is, a difficult skip pass, but he's really 2 quick singles away because there's an easy transfer pass through X, meaning that as soon as that ball hits X and you're that backside help, you have to work hard to get back out to your man, because this is exactly how this offense is predicated to set you up to get the ball to the backside and attack and approach just like they do here.
Yeah, I think it's a really savvy play, and whether it's designed or not, whoever's setting this seal still has to read the situation, because hey, he's covered, by this defender right here. He's not going to go set a pick on the guy that's leaving him, and then he's just trying to pick off, the most outside guy in the Duke rotation, so that again he finds a body, right? He seals it, and then hey, if this defensive midi is firing out to cut off this pass, he can slip right behind it.
Right.
But it works his way out. He's looking for the ball. So again, just really savvy off-ball play. Gets a decent look.
Yeah, and that's one of those scenarios where, once again, easier said than done. But if you're approaching a righty in that wing spot and you're low or even square with them, you just got to expect that hitch coming. And quite frankly, even if you get beat badly underneath, if you play it through for a second here, so as 12 gets the ball, yep, keep it going, and then right here, right, if that ball's forced back under, he has to tuck it back into where there's another player. There's 2 players there. So that at least buys a second a chance for your teammate to help you. Getting beat on a hitch here, that all that space to the middle to the strength is one move and a shot. So something to think about is why we do a lot of approach work like this, and why you don't want to get beat, but on those last second approaches, at least forcing a guy to, kind of tuck his stick back into traffic gives your team a chance to help you out.
And then our last clip from this Duke Denver game before we finish up and wrap up our first segment.
Yeah, and so this is one kind of like the last one where you kind of get that wing dodge look with the pick coming down where the offense takes middle. I think the difference here that we'll notice is it is a little bit more of an east-west dodge, so he doesn't easily kind of get middle and turn the corner. this is the right slide. There's less action in there. Like Deemer pointed out in the earlier clip, Duke had all that backside action to, grab the slider's attention. With the slide here, what I really like is how JT Giles Harris on the back pipe here. Right now, he's ready to get out adjacent to his man at X. However, as the ball goes top side, it's important if you're playing to defend the attackman at X and the ball goes top side towards the middle and your guy's deep at X, you have to start flowing up the field into the play a little bit and start clogging the crease, because now Duke can essentially play 6-on-5 above the cage because the ball's going middle, so no easy pass to X, and the X attackman is still deep. So right now Duke has 6 guys to Denver's 5, meaning they should be able to slide and still have everybody pretty much covered up.
Yeah, and this is an interesting one. I mean, I think this is where, especially early in the game, like, hey, what could have been done differently to hook this up for Denver? Obviously, Ethan Walker is one of the best lefty finishers. So, that might be one where, hey, if that's a guy who's playing more two-handed, and playing that style, I would be saying, hey, flash to this, righty, following the slide. Maybe you have a catch and shot righty. Maybe you have a wall pass to the base attackman, right? And we can beat that. But, regardless, that slide up with that timing makes it hard in general. This slide happens quick. Hannah's looking for that fade opportunity, but sometimes they're just tight spaces, and I think, that's where the defense does a nice job of rotating behind it. But if that's any later, 57's catching that lefty and turning and firing, and that ball is probably in the back of the cage.
Yeah, the timing's huge there, and I that's why I really like that clip and pulled it out. It's just that for guys that play at X, I think they struggle with that a lot. If the ball goes down the side, JT's responsibility is either that adjacent clog lane or getting to his man at X, whatever they choose. But when that ball goes middle, a lot of those X defenders or guys covering the ball behind, they get, really relaxed and kind of like, oh, my guy's not there in the play, so I can kind of relax. But in reality, you have an opportunity then to help your defense out. And JT does a great job recognizing that opportunity, because if 33 fills in off the back pipe, I think it's 33, there's a skip pass through. So he can't really help. However, JT's basically in that free safety role right now and does a good job reading it.
Yeah, it's great points all around. I think it's great for defenders to see. I think offensive players, making sure that you're seeing the movement and seeing how it all comes together. So, Matt, it was awesome breaking down these clips. I hope everyone enjoys. Make sure to, reshare, send it to your teammates, send it to your coaches, and we're excited to keep doing these every week going forward.